quick. Uh, Brother Orr.
Like that, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
I'd like to welcome everyone here to this holy day today. It's not a high holy day. It's not one that was commanded by Yah. However, it is one that commemorates the history in which was given to our people, or something that happened in our history. So we're gonna go over a little bit the history and the backdrop of the holiday feast of dedication, as it's called. Hanukkah, the gutter sound, is what it's been known to call today. So we're gonna move forward. So Hanukkah is the celebration which was instituted by Judah Maccabees circa 165 BCE that celebrated victory over Antiochus Epiphanes, the Seleucid king who had invaded Judea, trying to Hellenize the Israelites and desecrated the Second Temple in Jerusalem. A little bit of the history of it. Antiochus sent his soldiers to Jerusalem. They desecrated the temple, the holiest place for Israelites at the time. Antiochus also abolished the Torah law. He abolished the Torah law, outlawing the observance of Shabbat and of the feast days, as well as circumcised Israelites. Two options: conversion or death. Brother Joseph is going to read for us, starting at 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2.
And it happened, after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, and he reigned in his stead the first over Greece.
That's 2.
That's verse 1.
Okay.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth.
Okay, so right now it's starting off in the book of Maccabees. We're starting off with Alexander the Great. A lot of y'all have heard of Alexander the Great, and basically how he overtook the entire eastern part of the world through military tactics and whatnot. So it's getting into a little bit of history of Alexander the Great before we get into Antiochus.
Verse 4. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries, and nations, and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died.
All right, and that was 5? Or that was 10?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was that?
That was 5 and 7.
Okay, cool. That's fine. That's cool. All right, so right now is going into the transition of power. After Alexander the Great died, his kingdoms were split up amongst those that were underneath him. So everyone took a little piece of his kingdom and split it up into different dynasties.
And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Okay, that was what? That was 10?
17.
Okay, so now we're going into Antiochus. Oh man. Now we're going into his rule and his reign, and how he's starting to take over certain parts of the world and certain parts of the Levant region. All right, so we're going to go to 11 through 15.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen there that are round about us. Since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king and gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place to exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
All right, so what does this sound like? What is this a remembrance of? This is Israel, but remember when they were in the wilderness?
Yes.
Remember they continued when they left the land of Egypt and they were in the wilderness and they were going through the land of Canaan. This is exactly what they did. History is repeating itself once again. So the Israelites once again clung to the other nations, which Yah told us in Torah not to do. So because they clung to the other nations, once again, Yah turned his back on them. Where we going? 20?
Yes,
All right, verse 20.
And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread, and of the pouring vessel, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed.
Okay, so as we see here, was that 20 through 26, correct?
Yeah.
20 through 26, I want y'all to pay attention to something that was very important. Do you all see how easy it was for him to just walk right into the temple and desecrate the temple and take whatever out of the temple that he wanted to take? That's because we joined ourselves to the heathen, so then y'all turned this back on us and we lost our protection. When I was doing some studying for this, reading through Alexander the Great's memoirs, Alexander the Great originally was trying to go into Jerusalem and take over Jerusalem. When Alexander the Great walked into Jerusalem to take over Jerusalem, the high priest came down and told Alexander the Great, if you as much as swing your sword in the air, you will die 10 times here. Alexander the Great went to do that, but something came over him, was like, maybe I shouldn't do that. Yah's presence was put on Alexander the Great to where he knew, I'm not going to try this area. Notice, Alexander the Great, who took over almost the whole Levant region, Middle East, the whole, what do we call, Europe and Asia and India, that whole area, he ruled that entire area, but he didn't rule Jerusalem. That's because we were doing what we were supposed to do, and we had Yah's protection. He felt Yah's protection there, and he didn't even swing his sword in the air because he was so afraid. Later on, as we went down the line and we got away from Yah, then one of his predecessors was able to then just waltz into the temple and take whatever he wanted to. That's the difference between having the protection of Yah and having Yah's back turned on you.
All right.
Let's go to 29 to 39.
Verse 29. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of the tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For
Now,
when they
hold on real quick. Now, so as we read earlier, it was some calamity. People were sad, they were downtrodden. But when Yah turned his back on you, it just get worse and worse and worse.
and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them upon there, and so they became a sore snare. And it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel.
So, just like y'all said in Torah, These group of people, when I leave them here, they're going to be here, they're going to be a sword to you. They're going to be a thorn in your side. It's the same thing here. We joined to them, started practicing their customs, and they were able to come in and overtake us. They were able to come in and take our women and children. Then they went in and they fortified the city for themselves and made the city powerful for themselves, took all of our treasures, took all of our riches, and they took it for themselves, and they turned the city down, and they turned the city upside down. That was 39?
No, 37.
Oh, okay.
Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbath into reproach, her honor into contempt.
So as we see here, when we cleave to the other nations, it did nothing for us. It sounds a lot like today. We want to be like everybody else, and it's not doing anything for us but destroying us. Little by little, piece by piece, our families are being destroyed, our homes are being destroyed, our communities are being destroyed. We've lost our identity, just like our ancestors. We think if we cleave to other nations that we join to them and we try to be like them, it's going to be beneficial to us. Every single time we do that, it's become more detrimental and destructive to us as a people. All right, so I'm going to read this. It's a little bit of continuation. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, so that the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yet many also of the Israelites consented to this religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. And forbid, so this was one of the ordinances. So the king forbid burnt offerings. How do we show thanks to y'all? At that time, how was thanks shown to y'all? And sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple. So the very thing y'all asked us to do to show him reverence so that he can continue to be with us, they outlawed it. And they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. Remember what y'all said, what was that? Exodus 33, where he said, I know my children, those that are my children are known because they keep the Shabbat. Well, now you can't be known if you're Yah's or not because you're not keeping the Shabbat. You're profaning the Shabbat in his holy days. His holy days are what set us apart to let us know that we are his. So if the enemy comes in and tells us not to keep Shabbat, not to keep festival days, he's literally trying to tear you away from your heritage and your connection with Yah. And pollute the sanctuary and the holy people. They set up altars and groves and chapels of idols and sacrificed swine's flesh and unclean beasts. So they literally went into the temple, the holies of holies, on the stone altar where Yah came down at, and sacrificed swine's flesh. The disrespect. But we allowed it because we decided to join them and become their, and have their customs. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness and profaneness. The circumcision is a covenant between Yah that Yah made with Abraham to show that, you are a seed of Abraham. But the Greeks, because they worshiped the human body, they thought that circumcision was barbaric. They felt like you were mutilating your body when you did that, so they looked down upon us for circumcision. So they would kill you if they caught you circumcised or circumcising your children. To the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So all of these things were put in place so that we could forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said they should die. Now the 15th day of the month of Casleu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and built idol altars throughout the cities of Judea on every side. And when they had written in pieces the book of the law, which they found, they burnt them with fire. So not only did they tear up the copies of Torah that we had, they did set the Torah on fire. So they were literally trying to disconnect us from our heritage and our ties to Yah. And whoever was found with any of the book of the Testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death. So even if, because remember what y'all saying, he'll write the laws and put them on your heart. So yeah, you can destroy the books, but remember that's why we're supposed to memorize them. So to get rid of that even further, if you were caught being that living word, you were put to death. Now, the 5th and 20th day of the month, they the month, they did sacrifice upon the outer altar, which was upon the altar of Yah. So they took their altar, their God's altar, put it on top of Yah's altar, and they started sacrificing to it. The level of disrespect. And y'all are going to really feel disrespected when I get to the next part. In which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. So if your child was found circumcised, he was hung by his neck, like they did our slavery ancestors here, from trees. I want to touch on this month. Cassidy, does anyone know, I know I got it here, but does anyone know anything about this month? It's the 29th and the 10th month in the Hebrew calendar. Okay. It's the 9th and the 10th month of the year according to the biblical reckoning, in the 3rd month of the civil year, usually falling within late November and late December. I want y'all to tie something together real quick. What was that?
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask you. What you said?
The connection is they sacrifice on the altar on the 25th day of the month. And that has,
No, keep going.
well, that has something to do with they celebrate today on the 25th day of that month.
So, thank you. Yes. So what is that? What was that festival called? Saturnina. Yes. Saturnina was the base origin. Now they took a lot of different customs because like we saw earlier, the king wanted everybody to be one people. So they took pieces from everyone's culture, mixed it together, and that's how we got early Christianity. Early Christmas, which then it kind of evolved into the Christmas that we have now, which is nothing like the early Christmas. But the early Christmas, so I want you to understand this holiday that they were celebrating, this is what they were celebrating right here, which they put the altar of their God upon Yah's altar and then sacrifice to that God. That's the same thing. So for Saturnina, what they would do was they would find, they would get individuals who they thought were wicked or represented evil, and they would basically make them do evil things, like make them overstuff themselves, make them run around doing all these crazy things, and then they would slaughter those individuals because that was them basically trying to rid out of what they felt was evil at that time. So they placed that evil title on to our ancestors, and when they placed that evil title on our ancestors, that gave them the right to kill us because they felt like they were purging out the evil. So this is the celebration that they were doing, hence what we call modern day Christmas, at that time back then. So whenever you have, so if there's, and I know none of us in here celebrating, but if any of y'all are on the fence, I want y'all to remember, Christmas is literally the sacrificing of your ancestors. That's what that was. So remember that next time you want to sing, you walking through the store and Boys to Men, what is it? Christmas Night come on. That's what that was had ties and origins to.
And those 12 days that you said the true Lord said to me, that was orgy. Rumor.
Yep.
And in 12 days, you have this.
Yep, they did a lot. Yep, they did a lot. All right. So now the temple was renamed for the Greek god Zeus. A Jewish Renaissance movement led by a priestly family known as the Hasmoneans or Maccabees developed against the cruelty of Antiochus. The head of the family was Mattathias, or in Hebrew, Mattityahu, an elderly man. His son Judah became the chief strategist and military leader of the resistance. Though outnumbered, Judah Maccabee and his fighters miraculously won 2 major battles, routing the Greeks decisively. So we're going to read about that. I'm going to start here. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the son of Jeroboam from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons, Joanna called Cadus, Simeon called Thassus, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Ebron, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apophilus. We're going to the first Maccabees 2, 15 through 26.
Verse 15. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice.
So hold on real quick. So backdrop, and it's going to come up as he's reading. The king's officers were going around into the different cities in Jerusalem, in Israel, in Judea, and they were they were telling the Israelites, you have to make a sacrifice to our God. So we know that breaks Torah because you aren't supposed to make any sacrifices to any other gods. So that's what they were having them come and do. So they came to where Mattathias and his family was at, and came to Mattathias, who was a priest, one of the high priests, and they came to him because he was a strong man of valor. He was kind of like a leader of the city at that time. So they came to him to try to get him to sacrifice.
And when many of Israel came unto him, Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on this wise, Thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in the city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come thou first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards.
Hold on real quick. So they were basically trying to entice him. If you come and you sacrifice to our God, man, this sounds like Christianity all over again. If you come and you sacrifice to our God and give your life to our God, you will get silver and gold and riches, and you'll have a great name and do all of these different things. Same thing Jesus promised you in the Christian church. So so they came to him because basically if you come to the highest person and you have him do it, then it's easier to make everyone else do it. That's why they went to him first to try to get him to do it.
Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
So he said, I don't care what everybody else is doing. Just like Joshua said, me and my household, we're going to serve Yah.
Yah forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at motive.
So now we have somebody, which we always do, and we're gonna call him a Sambo, because Uncle Tom was actually a great person. We got a Sambo that's like, well, if you ain't gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. So this Sambo decided, I'm gonna go up here, and since he's not gonna sacrifice, I'm gonna go and sacrifice, because you know what? Yah's not really that important to me. I would rather follow the king and follow the laws of the land and do everything that the other nations are doing, because, you know, I'm just not built for this.
Wow. Which thing, when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to the judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
So do y'all see this? This is how zealous you have to be for Yah. He was so mad that this individual was about to go and sacrifice on Yah's altar that he killed the man. Now, he's a Levite, correct? Yes, he's a Levite. He's a priest. He was a Levite. Do y'all remember when all the other tribes in the wilderness turned against Yah? What was the one tribe that went around slewing everybody that turned against Yah? The Levites. And that's why the Levites were Yah's possession. That's why they didn't get an inheritance. Yah was their inheritance. They were that zealous for Yah that when they saw wickedness going against Yah, they slew everybody who came against Yah. Now, this feast that we're doing now is called what? Feast of Dedication. How dedicated are you to Yah?
Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of Yah, like as Phoenix did unto Zambri, the son of Salem.
So he killed the individual who was going to try to go sacrifice. He killed the officer that came in there and said and tried to entice them to sacrifice. And he tore down the altar. So he did exactly what Torah tells you to do. He did exactly that. Had the zeal for the law and executed proper judgment in the law. That was it. That was it. All right. Now Mattathias, he was an older man at that time. So he did this. He realized what he had did, and he realized, okay, we're going to have to go to battle. So he ran up into the mountains. Everybody that wanted to go into the mountains with him, they went up there with him. They basically organized and set up guerrilla warfare. and then he gets to the point where he dies. Now when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his son, now have pride and rebuke gotten strength in the time of destruction and the wrath and indignation. And he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the sepulchres of his fathers at Moden, and all of Israel made great lamentations for him. So basically, as we read through 49, between 49 and 70, he one of the commandments in Deuteronomy is to remember the past, remember the times of old. So when he was telling his sons, remember everything that your ancestors did. Remember when and he gave, what was that last verse 29 that you read? 26, I'm sorry. 26.
Thus dealt he zealously for the law of Yah, like as Phoenix did unto Zimri, the son of Satan.
So they were going and recalling all the times that Israel basically fought and overcame for Yah. So he did that all throughout this passage prior to him dying. He reminded his sons of how we overcame our enemies time after time again, and to lean on that same courage and lean on that same strength to overcome the enemy and defeat them in the battle that was coming up. So now we're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 3. Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead. And all his brethren helped him, and so did all that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness of the battle of Israel. Then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations about them. So they rose up. It was only a few of them, a couple of hundred of them. And they rose up, and they were, at that time, they were fighting like 40,000 Greek soldiers. There was a few hundred of them, and they were defeating 40,000 Greek soldiers. Do you know how much conviction you have to have in your heart to fight off? You are a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, and fight off 40,000. That means that's like, man, you have to really be dedicated to your cause, really have that dedication for Yah in order to fight that many soldiers, and not only fight, but prevail. They didn't fight and lose, they fought and prevailed. Now, when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation, wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army. So he got the word that, man, these Israelites is defeating my armies. Now he's mad. He opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whenever he should need them. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem, to wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, to take away the memorial from this place. So basically, he was doing everything in his power. He's paying people. He's borrowing soldiers from other nations. He's borrowing animals. He's doing everything he can to get all his forces and powers together to try to destroy and defeat the Maccabean army. And with them, he sent 40,000 footmen. So with all that he had gathered, and his troops and the elephants and all of that, he sent another 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judah and to destroy it as the king commanded. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitations in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. So everyone was in mourning. There was no joy in the land of Judah at all at that time. And after this, Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands and over hundreds and over 50s and over 10s. But as for such as were building houses, or had betrothed wives, or were planting vineyards, or were, y'all remember my last presentation I did? Not having fear? Right there. So if you were building your house, if you were betrothed, about to get married, you were building vineyards, or if you were fearful, he commanded you to go back home. Why did he command those that were fearful to go back home? For those that remember. It's contagious. Thank you. Fear is contagious. We can't defeat the enemy if you're scared. Because your fear is going to jump on me, and we all going to be defeated. So he said, if you're scared, go back home. Then said Judas to the men that were with him, fear ye not the multitude, neither be afraid of their assault. So what was that? Deuteronomy 20, correct? Fear not your enemy. When you see them round about and you see the horses and the chariots and you see everybody, do not fear them. Why? Because Yah is with you. All he was doing was repeating the law that was already there. And when he saw the mighty army, he prayed and said, man, this is a beautiful prayer. Blessed are blessed are you, O Savior of Israel, who did quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of their servant David, and gave the host of strangers into the hand of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his arm bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Do y'all see how specific this prayer is? This is how you got to be in your life. When you coming up against the enemy, you coming up against a battle, you can't just be like, y'all, give me the power to overcome. No, you have to be very specific in what it is that you're asking for. So he didn't just say, y'all, let us win the battle. He said, y'all, take away their courage. Take away their boldness and their strength. Cause it to fall away. Allow them to be confused and confounded. So that way they can't even come up with a plan on how to defeat us. He was extremely specific. He even went to the past and said, just like you did with Jonathan, the son of Saul, and you gave over the strangers to them, do the same thing for us. He even brought to remembrance for y'all, just like Moses was doing in the wilderness, brought to remembrance of y'all how we want it to look. That's how you got to be. You have to say, y'all, I want it to look like this, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. And that's how you defeat the enemy, whatever enemy that you have going on at that time. So they joined battle, and they were slain of the host of Lysias, about 5,000 men, even before they were slain. We'll get First Maccabees chapter 3, 36 through 56. So right now we're going to come up to the end of the actual initial battle that they started prior to the dedication or the rededication of the temple.
Verse 36. And that he should place strangers in all the quarters and divide their land by lot. So the king took the half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year. Having passed the river Euphrates, he went through the high country. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dominus, Nicanor, the Gorgias, mighty man of the king's friend. And with them he sent 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judah and to destroy it, as the king commanded. So they went forth all of their power and came and pitched by Amos in the plain country. And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves.
All right, so hold up. So right now, what's happening is, this is when Antiochus is having all the armies and all the rest of the world around them come in and desolate Israel. So the ones that they had already had in captive, now people are coming in to buy them up and purchase them as slaves. They're going in to continue to destroy and basically try to choke the life out of Jerusalem so that way they can defeat them.
And a power also of Syria and the land of the Philistines joined themselves unto them. Now when Judas and his brethren saw that miseries were multiplied, and that the forces did encamp themselves in their borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed fortune of our people, and let us fight for our own people and the sanctuary. Then the congregation gathered together, that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary was also trodden down, and the aliens kept stronghold, and the heathen had their habitation in that place, and the joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Wherefore the Damascus was a place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day, and put on sackcloth, and cast ashes upon their heads, and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. They brought also the priest's garments, and the first fruits of the tithe, and the Nazarites they stirred up, who also accomplished their days. Then they cried with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them away?
All right, so right now, so what they're doing right now is they've already defeated the armies. and they're starting to go into and rededicate the temple to Yah. So they're in the temple and they're looking around the temple and they're cleaning it up, trying to figure out what is there to do and how can we cleanse up this temple.
For the sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, thou knowest. How shall we be able to stand against them, except thou, O Yah, be our help? Then sounded they with the trumpet and cried with a loud voice. And after this, Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, and over hundreds, and over fifties, and over tens. But as for such as were building houses, and had betrothed wives, and were planting vineyards, and were fearful, those he commanded that they should return, every man to his own house, according to the law.
That's
Verse 56.
and then what's 58?
And
My apologies, congregation.
then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary.
Okay, boom, this is where we're at. I do apologize, I messed up. All right, so they've defeated the other armies, they've cast away the armies, and they've pushed them back. They've ran them out of the city, they've taken back the city, they've taken the stronghold from the armies of the Greeks, and they've basically taken back over the city. So now they're going to dedicate or rededicate the temple to Yah.
Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when they had consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them.
So remember where when the Greeks had came in and they were sacrificing pigs and unclean things on the altar, they're like, yo, we got an altar here. This is the altar that y'all told us to set up, but what are we to do with it? Because it's defiled. Like we can't offer anything to y'all on it because it's been defiled by unclean things being on it. So they basically came up with a plan to just put it to the side for now until when they're gonna tell you what happened.
Because the heathen had defiled it, wherefore they pulled it down, and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them.
So they were waiting for Yah to send a prophet to tell them how to basically set up a new altar for them, so that way they can give their praise and worship to Yah.
Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hallowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the holy temple they brought the candlestick, and the altar of the burnt offering, and of the incense, and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamp that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table, spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of the burnt offering which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it, even in that was it dedicated with songs and cisterns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising Yah of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise.
That's 58.
Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathens was put away.
All right. So as y'all saw, they cleared out. They overtook the enemy. They cleared out the enemy, got the enemy out of the temple. Then they went in and they rededicated the temple to Yah. They cleansed everything. They made new vegetables. They made new items that was in the temple. They built a new altar to sacrifice for Yah in the temple. They redid the entire temple. So now you have a question. What does this have to do with my salvation? And how can I apply this to my life today? So I want to go over a couple of things and then 2 more slides and we're done. So as we know, Hanukkah comes from the root Chanukah, which means to dedicate, consecrate, or rededicate, and in modern Hebrew, it means to revitalize. So when they went into the temple, after they cleared out the enemy, they rededicated, they consecrated. Consecrate means just simply to set apart. So they set apart the temple again from the rest of the world around it. So Hanukkah is a season of dedication. So my question is, how are you dedicating your life to Yah? The season of dedication, that the reason why we celebrate this isn't to light candles, isn't to give gifts, isn't to do all of that other merry and joyous stuff. The reason that we celebrate this feast is to bring to remembrance of how dedicated is your life to Yah. That is the purpose of this celebration. As we get around this time of year, I don't know if y'all noticed it, but the feast days that Yah gave to us, we don't have any feast days in the wintertime. All the feast days are in the spring and then in the fall. So at this time of year, it's darker, the days are shorter. A lot of people fall into depression just by nature because it's darker and the days are shorter. So sometimes you may forget what your purpose is. You're so busy focused on why you're feeling down, why you're feeling muggy, you forget what your purpose is. So this feast day was implemented to help you remember or rededicate yourself to Yah in the time when the earth is in the darkness and it stills. So going over a couple of the characters. Mattiyahu or Mattathias, does anyone know what his name means in Hebrew? Gift of Yah. So Mattathias was a gift of Yah. So you have to ask yourself, how am I being a gift of Yah? How am I living my life to be a gift of Yah? Now, all of us in here has a talent. All of us in here has something that Yah gave us. And in order for us to be the full version of ourselves and be that gift of Yah, where he's proud of us, we have to be living in the gift that he gave us to be a gift for him. Because by us being a gift to him, we become a gift to the rest of the world. So if you're living in your purpose and you're living in your gift, you are that gift that Yah gave to the world to make the world a better place. So you didn't have to look within yourself, rededicate yourself to Yah to figure out what's my gift that Yah gave me so I can give to the rest of the world. To then shine that light that is Yah to then show his glory. That's the purpose of Mattathias in this story. Next we have Judah. Judah comes from the root Yada, which means to throw, aim, give worship, praise. So, as we're sticking on the central theme of dedicating ourselves to Yah, how dedicated are you to Yah? Are you aiming? Because what is sin? The true definition of sin is just to miss the mark. Yeah. So when you're not sinning and you're living righteously, you're throwing or you're aiming at Yah to fulfill what he wants you to do, and you're giving worship. How much are you worshiping Yah? How much are you aiming at at his Torah? How much are you aiming to live your life the way he wants you to live your life? How much is your life dedicated to him? Maccabee. Does anyone know what Maccabee means? We got a couple of different definitions or a couple of different meanings of what Maccabee is. So the first one is an acronym. Mi kamaka bi Elohim Yah, which means, who is like you among the mighty, O Yah? This is you giving praise to Yah. Whenever you yelling at Maccabee, that's you literally giving praise to Yah. Now, there's another definition, there's another origin or possible origin of where it comes from. It also could stem from the Hebrew word for hammer, which is was it, Makab, the Hebrew word for hammer is Makab, if I'm right, I'm correct. Yes. And they called Judas Makab or hammer because when he hit the enemy, it was literally like being hit by a hammer. So that's why he was given that name. Now it's important that we bring this up because there's a few scriptures that we go to where Yah likens us to the same thing. So we read Jeremiah 51 and 20. It says, Yah says, you are my hammer and you are my weapon of war. With you I break nations into pieces, and with you I destroy kingdoms. We are supposed to be the Maccabees. Do y'all see how everything, the temple and everything was rededicated when Mattathiah and his family stepped into their gift and their purpose, which was to rededicate the temple to Yah. They became that hammer. They literally were the ones that went out and destroyed the other nations, destroyed the teachings and rededicated the temple to Yah. We have here Micah 4 and 13. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I will make your horn iron, and I will make your hoofs brown. You shall beat in pieces many people, and shall devote their gain to Yah. Thus their wealth to Yah, and Yah is the master of the entire earth. So this is just going in to show you even more how we're supposed to be, that we are that battle axe. We are the weapons that Yah chose to enact his judgment on the world. As we saw the Maccabean family enacting Yah's judgment on the Greeks in that area, we're supposed to do the same thing. Last one, Zechariah 9:13. For I have bent Judah as my bow. I have made Ephraim its arrow. I will stir up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, and wield you like a warrior sword. Yah is using us. That's why it is important to dedicate your life to Yah. That's the purpose of this, to make sure that you are always in alignment with Yah's will. Because Yah is using you. If you aren't operating in the realm in which you're supposed to operate in, your disobedience could cause somebody else to be thrown off. Because when you're operating in your gift, then you're able to touch someone else to get them to operate in their gift. That's why it's important that you're always consistently dedicated to Yah. Because we are here to uplift and enlighten the world. If I'm not doing my job, somebody else can't do their job. If we don't know what our job and our purpose is, then we can't help somebody else figure out their job and their purpose. My job and my purpose individually, I am a supporter. That is what Yah has called me to be. If I never knew what I was by nature, then I wouldn't be able to help those around me get to their fullest potential. And me being a supporter is kind of like how John was for Yahushua in the New Testament. John wasn't the one that brought the light. John was the one that was to bring the message of Yahushua so he could come. But if John never did his job, then we don't have a Yahushua. Y'all understand that, right? So everyone has their purpose that they're supposed to do. You go back to the Old Testament, the book of Jonah. Why did Jonah get put in the whale? Yeah. Because he wasn't living in his purpose. Yeah. Had Yah allowed Jonah to go and not do what he was supposed to do, an entire city would have been wiped out. Yep. That's how important it is for you to do your job. That's how important it is for you to stay dedicated to what it is that you're supposed to be doing for Yah. Because if you don't, you literally could cost tons of people their life. Because somebody's waiting on you to do what you need to do so they can do what they need to do.
All right.
We went over the hammer of Yah. So I leave with this. Yes, sir. Jeremiah 51 and 20. So I leave with this simple question. How dedicated are you to Yah? You have to go within yourself. That's what this time is for, to look. When we come into the lights are to be the representation. We are the light to the world. That's why we have these lights here today. It's to remind us that even in darkness, remember, the custom is to light the lights at night. But when the lights are lit at night, that's when you can see it the brightest. So you're supposed to be put in the place in the middle of darkness to be that light, that shining beacon, be that beacon of light to the rest of the world so they know exactly where to go and how to live their lives every single day. And with that, we'll finish.
Hallelujah.